For a believer, this must be one of the most egregious and dangerous acts of rebellion that can ever be committed. For the unbeliever, it's even worse. Will you listen to the consequences of doing such a wicked thing? For the believer, God will remove them from the place where they can be fruitful to the kingdom of God. Do you hear what I just said? They will be turned over to Satan for the destruction of the flesh because they have committed a sin unto death. You say, what? God's going to turn his children over to Satan for the destruction of my flesh? Where in the world you got that from, Kevin? Hey. I'm only quoting what the book says. 1 John 5, 16, 17. If anyone sees his brother, now is this a believer or an unbeliever? You tell me. John says he's a brother. And sisters are included in this, right? Sinning a sin. Christians going around sinning? Yeah, they sin. Come on. You're not foolish to believe you don't sin, do you? Which does not lead to death. He will ask, and he will give him life. The he here is God. Give him life for those who commit sin, not leading to death. But there's a bigger problem. What's that? There is sin. Singular. Do you notice that? There has an S on it. There is sin that leads to physical death. Believers can commit a sin, and it's not any particular sin. For Ananias and Sapphira, it was lying. For Moses, Miriam, and Aaron, they disobeyed God in representing God by striking Christ twice. For the unnamed prophet, God told that rascal to do something and go out in a certain direction, and he let someone else tell him to turn around, and God sent a lion and killed that rascal. Was he a true prophet? Oh, yeah. Yeah. For Uzzah, as they were carrying the Ark of the Covenant on the back of some ox, when God told them, don't do that, put it on the back of priests. Because the carrying of me is done by my son. The priest represented Christ. The ark represented the Spirit of God. God is carried in the body of his son. They put it on the body of some animals. And God said, no, don't do that. So God caused the animal to stumble. And Uzzah reached out his hand, a priest, a Levite, to keep the ark from hitting the ground. And he touched that ark. And you know what God did? God killed him on the spot. Why? Because he came into the presence of a holy God without blood. He committed a sin unto death. And I can go on and on and on. As a matter of fact, let me show you one interesting group. Not just one person, but a whole group of these people that did this. Why did I do that? A whole group of these people that did this. What did he do? Where am I? Start over. They my browser. Sorry about that. These rascals decided they were going to come and take the Lord's Supper any way they wanted to. And I'm going to show you what God did. And look, again, this is one of those things where, you have to look at what God is doing, right? Watch this, folks. So God said, hey, you better examine yourself. Look at this. You're sinning to death. Now, I got a whole series on this, but I'm going to just touch on it right quick. Therefore, whoever eats the bread and drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner. What is that? That is, you doing it without reverence, pure reverence to God. These people was coming in, they were hungry, so they started eating more bread. Some of them were thirsty, so started getting drunk. All this kind of crazy stuff. Why? Because they were so used to doing it in the pagan temples who were doing the exact same thing. They were having feasts, just like the Lord's Supper. Satan basically using something that was good, given by God, and using it as something to worship false gods. In an unworthy manner will be guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For he who eats and drinks in an unworthy manner, that is, with unrepentance, blatant sin, eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the Lord's body, that is holy. But for this reason, what reason? Because they were sinning in taking the Lord's Supper. Again, this is just another example. Can it be anything outside of that? Yes. Now listen. For this reason, many in this church, many of them, no, that's not what God said. They were weak. God started dealing with them in their body. And they didn't stop. So what happened? Step 2, they became sickly. That is, sick to a point to where it wouldn't heal. Then, look at this. Many of them sleep. God killed them. God goes around killing you. But look, folks, God is holy. If you think God's going to let his children go around disobeying him and not discipline them, you got the wrong God and you got the wrong scriptures. For if we judge ourselves, we won't be judged. He's not talking salvation here, friends. He's talking about your behavior after salvation. God is not going to put up with one of his children going rogue. He ain't going to put up with it, friends. And if you're going rogue and you're not weak, sick, or dead, what does that tell you? You're not one of God's. The book of Hebrews, chapter 12, say God disciplines all his children. And if you go without discipline, he says, you're not mine. So if you find yourself sinning in total rebellion against God and God does nothing, that's because you're not his child. But when we are judged, we are chastened by the Lord, that we may not be condemned with the world. Why does God go around chastening his children? Because you are not going to be condemned. The penalty of death, spiritual death, has already been paid. So how did God give discipline? He hit your physical body. There is sin unto death. I do not say that you're going to pray about that. Why? Because you can't change God's mind once it's done. All unrighteousness is sin. How much unrighteousness is sin? And what is the unrighteous thing? Anything that's not produced by God himself. And there is sin not leading to death. Now look,